I am Laura Elorza, clinical psychologist and yoga teacher, and today we are going to talk about one of the most sneaky drinking holidays there is during the year, which is St. Patrick's Day. And look, I am not here to tell you to not have fun or not to enjoy yourself. Not at all. I'm here to talk a little bit more about what's going on behind the scenes in your brain and what is happening when everyone around you is wearing green, holding up a pint, and why by the end of the night, most people end up asking the question and wondering, how did I get here? Because the spoiler alert of this is that this was not a choice, or at least not a conscious choice. So St. Patrick's Day, it's really interesting, especially from a psychological perspective, because it's one of those days that you get this free pass, and they function as what researchers call a functional or temporal landmark. And it's a day that feels different and that you allow yourself to behave differently. And what we do on those days is kind of special. And we give ourselves the permission to change a little bit and go out of the routine. And there's different research that shows those temporal landmarks. So for example, New Year or a birthday or the first day of spring, which they create this psychological break from the past self. So they open up your mind to, okay, I am going to explore and I'm going to line up my behavior to the person I want to become. And that is an actually beautiful thing because we use those days as motivation. But there's a flip to this landmarks, which is the same mechanism that can activate to help you change your behavior and your perception. It can work against you. So for example, St. Patrick's Day it's not just a landmark, it's something very culturally inscripted all in one. And it is a costume, and the playlist is ready, the songs are sounding, the script says like, oh, drink, celebrate, repeat. And before your prefrontal cortex can be aware of the situation and gets to decide to vote whether, oh, I'm going to have a second or a third glass or a third pint, you already are in the second or third pint. And there is something that I want to introduce to you, and it's a very interesting topic, which is the social contagion. So let me introduce you to a very interesting topic, which is the social contagion. And no, this is not about viruses. It's something far more interesting in my perspective, and it's about behavior spreading through a group like a wave. So when you walk into a bar on St. Patrick's Day, your brain does something very, very interesting, which it starts scanning the room very in an automatic way. And it reads the social norm and it starts to align to that social norm. It is something like a neurobiological mirroring. So your brain is wired to synchronize with a group for survival reasons, really. And it goes back thousands of years. The problem is that in 2026, survival looks very different. Survival is fitting in with my friends. Survival is being comfortable in the pub in a Tuesday afternoon in March. It's not a big giant animal is trying to catch me, or it's not like, oh, if I'm left away from my group, probably I won't survive. And this is where it gets super, super tricky. Your brain really can't differentiate. It's just survival. And this affects the effect of mirroring compounds. And for example, one person orders around and then another, And then someone says, come on, it's St. Patrick's Day, we're drinking, and suddenly saying no feels very dangerous. And saying no feels like a personal rejection. And it feels like leaving the group. And there is a social pressure. It's not just external, it's actually very internal, and it's completely internalized. So you start to feel like you are the odd one out if you choose differently. And your unconscious mind starts to fire up and tells you like, oh, you have to join. You have to join, and that's the right call to do. And this is really not weakness. That is your nervous system doing what it was designed to do, which is survive and help you out. But a question comes up is, can you make a conscious choice inside of that pole of biological survival? So let's talk about something that I call the unconscious permission giving. So this is one of my favorite topics because it's so sneaky, and we experience it every single day. And this is when your brain starts to construct a justification for a behavior that you're having before you're even aware that you're justifying your behavior. So it sounds like it's one day of the year, it's okay if I drink. Or everyone is doing it, so I'm gonna do it. Or I've been so good this week, so I'm allowing myself to do this. And I deserve to celebrate. And those are very simple phrases, but they can sound very familiar. And these are not conscious choices. This is the end result of your unconscious brain telling you and justifying the behavior to fit in. So we are pre-programmed into responses that run in the background of our heads and of our brains, and it shaped us throughout the years because of cultural messages or because of past experiences or as reward for associations that you did before that pan out great. So there's barely an attention and there's barely an awareness when you make those choices. And neuroscience tells us that 95% of our behavior is unconscious. And we like patterns. That is what our brain is designed to do. So that decision that you made to go for that fourth or that fifth drink probably was made before you even were aware of that. And research on alcohol specifically says something that your brain's prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain that is in charge to be flexible, to adapt, to make the decision making, becomes less effective while you're having alcohol in your system to integrate that negative feedback that you're getting. And in other words, really, the pattern gets quieter and quieter about the consequences and louder about the reward. So there is good news about all of this, and it's that awareness really interrupts that automatic processing. And that's exactly what we are building up for today. So there are different tools that you can use, especially on days like St. Patrick's Day, because when you are standing in a bar and someone is handing you a beer, a green beer, and everyone around you is having fun and clinking and drinking, your body wants to say yes, and your unconscious mind wants to say yes. But there are tools to help you stay grounded in your decision, whether it is to drink moderately or not to drink. So the first tool would be the pause protocol. So before you accept that drink, take a breath. And take one breath and ask yourself, do I actually want this? Does the situation want it for me, or do I want it myself? And that's a 3-second pause. It's that short of a time, it's enough to activate your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain that makes the decision that aligns better to what you want in the future. And I know it sounds very, very small, but it's so powerful. Then a second tool would be the pre-decision because of the intention. And before you walk into St. Patrick's Day, before you walk into the bar, set a conscious intention and a conscious anchor. So it's not a rigid rule. It's not as something that, oh, I fail or I win. It's more about something of, tonight I am going to enjoy myself and I feel great and I want to feel great tomorrow morning. So I will moderate my drinking or I will not drink today. And research shows that implementing this intention-based behavior, like making the decision in advance, can help you with the load of decision making in that moment. So because in that moment it feels very socially vulnerable to make a decision, but if you set an intention beforehand, you can always come back to that. A third tool would be a celebration ritual that actually works for your intentions. And here's where a lot of people really don't talk about this. And it's the reason of drinking is very social. And it is so compelling to drink because you feel connected to something bigger. But the thing is that drinking can be tied to real human needs, for example, of connection, of joy, of belonging, or relief. So instead of just removing the drink, ask yourself, what are you looking for in that celebration? And why are you celebrating that day? And how can you honor that feeling in something that aligns better with who you are and your true self? And maybe it's having one intentional drink, one cocktail that you really, really want, and that you can taste, you can enjoy, and you can sip throughout the night, instead of having 5 cocktails that you can barely remember. So maybe it's the most important thing is about being present and energized and being there with the people you care about. Or maybe the most important thing is to dance because you love to dance and you want to dance all night. But you do want to wake up clear-headed because next Monday you want to feel energized. And this is something really wonderful because deciding not to drink or to drink moderately doesn't mean that you have to stay at home. It just means to set a clear intention and to set a clear goal for yourself. And the point here is you get to design the ritual, and the holiday doesn't design the ritual for you. Now, if today's conversation is resonating for you in any way, and you feel that you need to change your relationship with alcohol and your relationship with drinking, and maybe you want to dig deeper more into the unconscious patterns that drive those autopilot decisions, the Unconscious Moderation app is here for you. Most of our behaviors are unconscious. Around 95% of them are unconscious, and only 5% of them are consciously decision making. So an unconscious behavior could be reaching for that drink without even asking, oh, do I want to drink today? Or does it align with me? And the Unconscious Moderation app uses 3 science-based back tools that can help you understand the motivations behind your drinking. So the first would be hypnotherapy, which helps you enter that relaxed, mindful state where you can question your beliefs and you are open for new beliefs and developing new perceptions about yourself. Then there's the journaling, which is understanding the language of your unconscious mind so you can identify what you're looking for when you are drinking. And then the third thing, and the third tool is movement. So when you move, you develop your serotonin levels, your dopamine levels, and you get all those chemicals that you would get chemically through or artificially through alcohol. You get it naturally. So it helps you understand and develop different ways to feel that high and energetic self that sometimes you get when you're drinking. So this is all about moderation, about knowing your limits and knowing what truly works for you. Not justifying and not being unconsciously driven through patterns, but more through structure, intentionality. And that's what it matters. And remember, transformation does not require perfection. It requires awareness. And if what we talked about today clicked for you in any way and you feel that your relationship with alcohol needs a change, give Unconscious Moderation app a try. And we will help you and we will guide you, support you throughout the journey of changing those unconscious patterns and transforming your perception about yourself from the inside out. Stay conscious and stay free.